You have to find a way to stand out from the crowd. There's a million creative agencies, there's a million production companies. What makes you different?
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Creative Haven podcast. I am here with Heather Mansfield Jernigan from Castleview Agency, and I found them online and thought they were outstanding. Being someone from LA coming to Austin, it was such a pleasure to see such a talented company and great content, and just seeing someone in the field of video and the video agency world. It's just good to see really great quality. And so before I get into it, I want Heather to talk more about your background and how you came to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Yeah, so my background is mostly in TV, actually. I graduated college from Texas A&M and then moved out to Los Angeles and worked on a few different television shows as a producer and a field producer, and also did quite a bit in TV development. So selling shows kind of in the unscripted space and in the documentary space. So that was really my background when I came to Castleview, which was interesting because I think I brought some of those skills into the corporate video storytelling aspect of it. But I got to Castleview about 7.5 years ago as a producer and writer. My boss and CEO, Ted Barnhill, really kind of showed me the ropes of what it is to make a corporate video. And so I learned the ropes that way. And 7 years later, I took over as CEO of the company. And so now we're really, primarily focused on B2B videos, working with marketing teams in the tech world to really elevate their visual marketing on social media for internal videos and really with communications with their clients. So that's where our focus has kind of shifted in the last few years.
I love that because I have worked in the TV industry too in Los Angeles, and having to deal with those schedules and also the schmoozing and the amount of writing and pitching and the rejection of the industry, it really helps you develop a thick skin. And so what would you say was some of the great lessons that you learned as a TV producer to actually hop into the world of corporate video and just B2B marketing and advertising and video creation?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a producer in TV, what I really learned was you have to be flexible. You have to think on your feet, and you can't be married to the creative to the point that you hold on to it so much that you're unwilling to change. So, I think in television, everything moves so quickly that really what I learned is like, okay, this idea works or it doesn't, and you move on to the next thing, and just constantly kind of evolving your ideas and moving from thing to thing. So I think that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned that helped me, work with clients now. Really serving them and obviously serving the story, but being willing to be flexible and to work, with teams, with large teams too. I mean, in television, you're working with a large group of creatives and network execs and trying to please everybody. And so, being able to bounce between those different kinds of people was, really beneficial, I think, for my career early on.
So were you a writer and then producer, or then a producer and then writer?
I was mostly a producer and then writer. I did a lot of field directing and producing, so working with talent in the field. And then I did a little bit of copywriting, but mostly on the producing side. Yeah.
Got it. And then when you got into producing, what was it about producing in the filmmaking and the TV industry that got you interested?
Man, I mean, for me, my passion is really in the unscripted kind of documentary space because I just love people. I love talking to people. I love getting stories of people out there. So I think I really fell in love with things like the interview process and finding the best way to represent someone's story visually and just getting to those moments of truth with people that are difficult to get to, forming those connections. And I think they can really elevate a story when it's authentic and genuine. And so that was really the part of producing I fell in love with was the people, dealing with the people and the real stories. So,
That's great. And when you were producing those type of stories and those type of videos, what did you find was the best way to get that authentic answer in those questions? Was it a beautiful set or like a comfortable set, or was it the pre-production and the conversations beforehand that led up to the set?
Yeah, I mean, for me, if you can get the subject to forget that they're on a set and forget that
Mhm.
there's a camera there, that is key. So, yes, I do think pre-production was a huge element because you're getting that person comfortable with you over multiple conversations, and
Mhm.
they kind of feel like they know you before you turn a camera on them. But I think for the most part, for me, it was like making sure the subject feels comfortable, making sure you're talking, you're leading them through this conversation and this interview as comfortably as you can to where they feel like they're having a conversation and they're not being pinged with interview questions. And so that's really how I felt like was the most successful way to do it, as opposed to, stiff sets and lots of hair and makeup and multiple cameras. I mean, I know that sometimes that's a part of it. But the more you can make it natural and, let the person forget about the lens for a second and just have a conversation, it's the best way, I think.
That's right. And when you transition, of course, from TV budgets and TV sets to corporate videos and, relatively smaller budgets,
Sure. Yeah.
how were you able to still create and hold on to that quality and hold on to that authentic performance, and at the same time, create something amazing and on time for a client?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorite challenges is working within a client's budget, right? So
Hmm.
this limitation for me, I think can spark creativity because
Yep.
you're finding ways to really spread a client's dollar.
Hmm.
And you can really focus on what's important to that client to tell their story. And so for me, the budget restrictions and the quality, it's like, well, where do you want how is your money going to show up best on screen? Like where are you going to
Hmm.
see the value, as opposed to, I feel like with TV, a lot of that money is hidden in what's happening off screen and it doesn't always show through.
Hmm.
So really my focus when working with these smaller budgets is maximizing the effect they're going to see in the final product. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that, but you know, I think every client's a little different and you just really
Hmm.
want to focus on the best way to tell that story and bring that quality out.
That's right. And I know that you're working in the marketing and advertising and also the internal video space. And that's actually, I would love to hear more about that, because we always talk about marketing and advertising. And I've also talked to other potential clients about the idea of internal videos. It's not always like videos to sell your services. You can make videos to train your new employee, talk to existing customers. So talk about more about internal video and what you usually pitch to companies of the importance of internal video.
Yeah, so that's a market that I think should get a lot more love. To your point, we do a lot of training videos, and what we tell our clients is, this is sort of the first entry point for this new employee to enter into your business, right? So I think it is important how you showcase yourself. It's important how you talk to that employee. It's really a way for them to control their vision and the feel of their company in this video. And so, what we've experienced is that when an employee goes in and they see a beautifully produced training video that's clear and concise and gives them all the information, they're like, wow, this company is legit. I'm excited about working here. You can elicit this emotion of getting somebody pumped up to work for your company. And I think the way that you communicate internally is just as important as how you communicate externally. If you want your company to, have a certain character and those values and the tone and all of that, I think, it can't just be client facing. You really have to have that holistic, experience of, for your employees and your current customers to see that as well. So, um, for us, the best clients already know that,
Hmm.
and understand it and appreciate it, and then come to us and we can kind of build on that. So there's always some educating, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about having to work with clients that really know their branding, right?
Hmm.
They know their branding, they know their mission, they know their vision, they know how
Right.
they want to actually create videos for their clients and potential target audience, and also for their internal. Though there are some times when clients don't know what they want, or they come to you for the creative. And I know that for you, you do creative development. And so when you have to create the ideas for a client and someone who says, you know what, I leave it up to you. Can you just do the work for us? What's your process of coming up with that creative idea to create something for the client that's going to help their business?
Yeah. And I mean, so many clients do that, right? They're like, I know I need a video. That's all I know. Like, I need a video. I need it to do this. And that's as far as they want to take it. And I really actually love that process with a marketing team where they are willing to let it go that much and say, you guys tell us what you think. But I've got a pretty like logical process for that. We have a creative brief that we have every client fill out, and we fill out for them too, where it's something like, who's your audience? What are you trying to say? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Like just some very basic questions. And then for me, it's carving out time to focus on that client.
Mhm.
So getting rid of all distractions, even if it's just a couple of hours in a day, and saying, I'm just going to focus on this creative brief. And then really kind of formulating the idea from there. I got 2 dogs, so I like walk my dog. I'll do the creative brief, I'll read it, then I'll walk my dogs and just start thinking about things that have worked in the past for those type of clients. So that's a huge help to me, is being like, okay, well, their audiences, new employees for this tech company. Well, I know this other tech company we did a video for, this type of communication worked really well with a spokesperson. Maybe we should think about doing a spokesperson, and then kind of tailoring it to that new client. So, some of it comes with experience or just seeing what's worked for other people in the past. And then, just really taking some time to get out, get some fresh air, walk, think about it, let it marinate. And then usually by the next day, I've got something fully formed and I can share it with my team. I mean, that's the other great part of our process, I think, is that we're all creatives, and I'm a big fan of collaboration. So, for us, sometimes it's a 20-minute, 30-minute talk about a client and our ideas. And, my editors will throw out good ideas, and my graphic designer will want to, put his 2 cents in. And so, I've also got a collaborative part of my process that I'm really appreciative of. So
Nice. No, I love that. I love that you create time to be creative. You also go outside with your dogs and spend time in nature and outdoors to get some fresh air. And you also have a team to collaborate with in order for you to come up with the creative brief, which ultimately is going to help guide the ship when it comes to video production. And I love that. And I think that a lot of people I've interviewed on there, they talk about the same process. And when you do have a creative team and trying to manage a creative team, what have you found is kind of your special sauce as Castleview? You talked about it a little bit. You have a great team. As how you manage each other when it comes creatively, do you have strict timelines, or do you have strict schedules? Do you work on different schedules, just results oriented, or is it results focused? How do you manage a creative company?
Yeah, so I mean, that's a great question. I took over as CEO at the end of last year, so this has been sort of a learning process for me as far as managing a bunch of creatives. And honestly, everybody works a little bit differently, and you have to respect that, especially I think with creative processes, that not everybody is going to work really well with a Gantt chart, or with Google Calendar or whatever it is. Everybody kind of has their method, and so. I think for me, I've got a post-production coordinator who loves a schedule and loves timelines. And that's definitely what we give the client. We let them know what their deadlines are. But then as far as, managing my team internally, it's, figuring out how people flow and how people work, and, really kind of customizing it to them, because you can't put creatives in a box. So you gotta be, I think, to get the best results, you've got to be willing to be flexible there. And most of them hit their deadlines. They just might do it in different ways,
So true. There's a lot of creatives out there who like to do everything at the last minute because it actually gets them to do the actual project. And also the pressure helps a few creatives actually get things done. I know I used to work like that, but now as a owner of a company with my own employees, I can't do that anymore just because of scheduling. And it's not very safe when it comes to the day before you need to get something done. It's just, there's so many fires that you need to stomp out, especially during production. And that question for you. Whenever you do have, let's say, as a CEO, you're a producer as well, and so you see the creative process from the beginning. You also see it at the end when it comes to each video. But also, how do you manage the business at the same time? Because I'm sure you also have to sell to clients. You also have to market your own company online and you're in social media. So how are you able to compartmentalize, each the production side, the marketing and advertising side of your own business, and of course managing the business?
Yeah, so it's perfect timing you asked this question because, as you know, those are all different parts of the brain, right? Like when you're
Mhm.
thinking about marketing and sales, that's a little different than when you're thinking about the creative process for a client. It's different than when you're thinking about production. And so it is totally about, compartmentalizing. And I learned this from a mentor of mine. His name's Jay Allen. He runs Secret Powers. It's a graphic design studio in Dallas. And
Nice.
he sent me this spreadsheet that's like Jay's ideal week. And so I made one that's like Heather's ideal week. And basically, I split up my days into chunks of time where I'm focused on those things. So, like in a perfect world, from 9 to noon on Mondays, that's all client meetings. And
Mhm.
from noon to 3, that's creative thinking. That's work. And so, like for me, having that calendar and being like, okay, great, I'm going to shut off my email. And for the next 3 hours, I am focused on marketing. I'm going to, do whatever I need to do for marketing. And so, I do think you have to separate them out physically by hour of the
Mhm.
day. Because for a while I was kind of trying to do all of it and bouncing back and forth, and I wasn't giving the proper amount of love to any of it. And so, yeah, I think you've got to recognize that hey, this is a different part of my brain. I'm going to work on this. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to eat lunch. I'm going to come back and I'm going to start using this part of my brain. So, yeah, I mean, as a business owner, you've got to do it all. So,
It's true. And I every time I have you have your dream schedule and that 9 to 12 in the morning, you've got it so consistent. And then that one opportunity that's like the dream opportunity you've always wanted has to of course land between 9 and 12. And it's
oh
that
yeah,
flexible time that you have and being okay with the schedule having to be shifted around any once in a while.
yeah,
And
yeah.
with that in mind, yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that's why you call it the ideal week, and
Yes, it's the
it
actual week.
never is exactly that, but it gives you some sort of structure.
That's right. Do you ever apply this to your personal life as well, where you say, okay, from Mondays from 6 to 8, I eat and then read a book. And then on the weekends, do you also schedule out your weekends in your personal life?
I mean, my husband's not big on schedules, so our weekends are a little more flexible.
Yeah.
But I do, we're working from home nowadays, and so I
Mhm.
do schedule my personal life in the week in between those. Like, oh, Friday afternoons are good for appointments, so that's when I
Mm.
do those. Or walking the dog at 11 is perfect, so I do that. And so I do try and get my personal time in there. But as far as weekends, we just kind of play it by ear for the most part.
That's a
Yeah.
good way to play it. Sometimes you just can't always be pragmatic, especially as a creative and just life in general. Just be in the moment and enjoy life for what it is.
Yeah.
And with that being said, like what you were saying, creating a culture and managing a company while you're remote, because of COVID, I'm sure it's been tougher. I mean, you said you became a CEO at the end of last year, at the end of 2020. And
Mhm.
so you became a CEO when things were all remote. How has that changed the pre-COVID way of um, managing a company? And now, like, well, how have you been able to adapt? And what have you finding as like the best way to keep everyone on the same schedule and mission and goals and deadlines?
Yeah, I mean it's super tricky, right? Like we were a very tight team when we were in the office every day. We communicated constantly, popped into each other's offices, went on walks, went on lunches, we were just always communicating. And so we have had to adapt in the last year. I'm really proud of my team for our ability to do that. One of the first
Mhm.
things we implemented were daily calls every morning on
Nice.
Zoom, and they're quick. They're, sometimes 15 minutes long, where it's like, hey, what are you up to today? What are you up to today? And just, seeing everybody's face, that's been huge every morning. And then Slack has been a big communication tool for us where
Yes.
everyone's, kind of constantly talking. And then we've also made some special efforts to to talk on the phone more, to have socially distanced meetups in the parks. We've done that a couple of times. Like I said, I'm really proud of the way our team has kind of banded together and taken care of each other during this time. But it was certainly an adjustment, and we had to use various technologies and methods to stay connected. And a project management tool that we really have dug into to make sure we're meeting deadlines and staying in touch with our clients. So it was a challenge, but I think we've done pretty well.
Oh, that's so good to hear. And that actually leads me to the next question of COVID compliant video shoots
Oh man.
and, having to get into creating sets that are safe or having to remote direct shoots. Like, what have you found were the different, like last year in 2020, what were the ways that you were creatively creating these projects for clients that were safe? And how in 2021 have you also shifted to in person, if you have, for the pandemic and filming?
Yeah, so a lot of what we found last year was that, we do a lot of event videos, and
Mhm.
a lot of our clients went to virtual events, and they really wanted to up the production value of those events instead of just doing, live Zoom events where things could go wrong, conferences. And
Yep.
so, we were really able to shift our business model a little bit to start pre-recording those events for people.
Nice.
Um, so we would pre-record the speakers, we would add graphics, we would add a little music, we would edit it together. Sometimes there would be live elements that we would include, but really finding ways to serve our clients in that way,
Mhm.
which I think was helpful last year for sure. And this year, as we kind of move more towards in-person productions, we have a studio that we are able to maintain, COVID compliance, keep really clean, smaller crews. We have some really strict guidelines as far as masks and temperature checks and
Mhm.
who's touching what when. And one thing that was really beneficial to us was having one crew go in and set up for a shot and then leave. And the next group
Mhm.
comes in and actually executes it. And, finding ways to really work around it. And for us, it's really most important that our crew feels safe when they're working for us, the freelancers, and then our clients and our subjects feel safe too. So we've had to be really wary of it and keeping, luckily, all of our team has been healthy this whole year. So we feel blessed in that regard. But yeah, we've had to make some changes.
Oh, that's a great strategy and a great way to keep your crew safe and also to help your clients pivot
Mhm.
from in person to virtual events. And that's awesome. I actually would love to see a sample of what you did because I've done a few live events with like Tony Robbins and other webinars and summits. And to see the production value grow on live virtual events, it's fascinating to know how much bandwidth and internet speed is needed to have
Oh yeah,
4K quality and just everything in general. Like it's thank God for technology. Um,
no kidding.
and I think that you also touched upon it too, the whole idea of freelancers and the idea of having an agency and quality control,
Mhm.
right? Because as you are hiring people to execute a project and a creative brief for a client and making sure that you execute it in the way that you envisioned and also that the client is happy, how do you make sure that the freelancers and the contractors stay on target, also on budget, and also in the quality that you want?
Yeah, so I am a big believer in having an arsenal of creatives at your disposal. I know you've looked at our website, but I think what speaks to that is just the vast bandwidth of our work and what we're able to do as far as style and type of storytelling. So our freelancers are really important to us, and I think the way to maintain that quality is, you have partners that you trust. You don't put a brand new person on your top video or your top, with your top client right away. You kind of test the waters with them. Really knowing those freelancers, knowing what they're good at, to make sure that you're putting the right people on the right projects. Yeah, and then I think just being really clear in your communication and not. I very rarely let a project go completely without somebody on our team or me overseeing it. So having that quality check there with somebody that's a part of the Castleview team that's either guiding it from a production standpoint or an editing standpoint, that's kind of keeping tabs on everything, I think is important. So It's about finding the right people and then communicating well what you need and yeah, putting them on the right projects.
That's great because I'm actually in the process now that I'm in Austin from LA. I'm trying to find those creative people. And so as you were looking for these freelancers, what were the resources that you would have online in order for you to find these talented people?
Yeah, for the most part, I like the referral base.
Hmm.
I have a lot of friends in the industry that I work with and that I've worked for before, and so for me, I've got a lot of recommendations that I just trust, and they give me lists all the time. Hey, I just worked with this DP; he was awesome. You should try him out, or
Nice.
I just worked with this designer; you would love him. And so we also utilize Production Hub. We found people that way.
Hmm.
Staff me up. So we're always willing to try new people. I love getting them young and hungry too, and testing them
Hmm.
out, and molding them and shaping them. That's always fun. um, so yeah, but it's mostly referrals for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what you have a studio, and I think that's great and awesome. And I'm actually a little jealous because that's something that I would love to have as well, because you get to manage a place that can pump out content on a consistent basis. You don't have to worry about renting and other places that may not, hold up to your standards. So what is that process of course, having your own studio, but also managing it in a way, because you have, of course, the projects that you have to worry about and whatnot, and but you have an actual place where people are and you have to manage it. So how is that process of having your own studio, and how has that helped your business when it comes to pumping out content and creating?
Yeah, I mean, the studio was, man, it was invaluable this last year with COVID, having a place that felt safe to film. We have found ways our studio is not huge compared to some other studios in town. It's a little smaller, but we have found ways to make it feel big. It's a green screen studio, but we've
Mhm.
also utilized backdrops and created sets in there. It's a great way to control the set, control the audio, control the lighting, all of that. And then it saves us money at the end of the day if we're not paying large location fees. So all of that has worked, to our benefit. I do usually have somebody on staff that is sort of their domain.
Mhm.
And it's been different people throughout the years. So it's really funny because everybody has their own style of how the studio is their baby and they feel like it organized a certain way and labeled a certain way. And it's been different iterations of it, but I like to have somebody that's really dedicated to that space because, like you said, it is upkeep, it's work, and you have to make sure it's, painted and clean and all that good stuff. So yeah, I usually assign someone to that.
That's right. People are like, that's not where the C stands go. Those are where the
Yeah.
stingers go. Like, where are my flags? Like, it's funny because I've been part of studios like that, and there's a particular system in a way, and transitioning between studio managers can be tough. But
Yeah,
it's all
people can be funny about it. I had a guy like he was drilling in hooks into the wall because he wanted them hung a certain way, and then another gal I had was like, this is all a mess. I'm going to clean all this up and moving these shelves and like, so it's funny. We got a lot of like OCD types that really like to dig their heels into that.
that's good. At least OCD types keep it clean and
Exactly.
organized.
Yeah, I love it.
So Heather, when you're as a producer, I'm sure you've had to always break down budgets, right? And make sure that everything is on budget, on time. And when you have to explain to a client why it costs the way how much it costs, and you
Mhm.
get into that whole idea of just valuing your creativity and valuing the people that you have on staff. How is that process to you? Do you stick with a certain number, like this is it, nothing below, and that's it? Or do you find ways to be malleable for some clients and some companies?
Yeah, so there's a couple different tricks that I use for this. There is a number that we won't really go below just because at
Mhm.
some point we're probably not the right company for you if you're
Right.
looking for video at X dollars, right? And I try to be upfront and honest about that. Um, my best clients are the ones that already understand value in video, and those are the dream clients. Although, occasionally we're having to educate people about why things are expensive and why they cost what they cost. But another trick that I've learned recently is price anchoring and giving
Mm,
clients an option of three different videos at three different price points.
love it.
And what I have found doing that is, let's say you want we're going to give you customized music and drone shots, and we're going to use these red Epic cameras, and this is your like top amazing commercialized video, right? And then you give them two other options, and typically they always go for the middle or somewhere in between, like the middle and the high, you know. And something about giving those clients options where you're not just like throwing an estimate in their face and saying, here's what it costs, but really, you know, that price anchoring also comes with a presentation of, here's what we heard you say that you need. Here's how we would address it with video. Here are ideas, and here are some pricing options for you. It reminded me of when I was planning for my wedding, and they would throw out like these flowers, or these flowers. And I always pick the middle because, you know, you don't want to pick the cheapest line, you know, but you don't want to. So it's been a really great tool that I learned from Joel Pilger at RevThink. He's a marketing guru like yourself. And so, yeah, it's worked really well for us.
Oh, thanks for that advice. I'm going to use that on my next pitch and my next RFP. It's great to know that you do that, because sometimes the client doesn't know what they want or they need, and at the end of the day, it's there for you to guide them. And so, you know, I know that you're busy, so you know you have a lot of things to do. But before you go, you know, I'd love for you to actually give advice to anyone out there who wants to own their own agency. You know, having the TV and producing background and going into, you know, being a CEO at your own agency. What advice can you tell people who have their own agency or want to create their own agency?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've learned the most, especially in the last year, is you have to find a way to stand out from the crowd. There's a million creative agencies. There's a million production companies. What makes you different? What is it about your style or about the way you produce your videos that makes you stand apart? And maybe it's about finding a niche in the business. You know, is it B2B tech videos? Is it car commercials? You know, I've got a friend that all they do is tech explainer videos. That's it.
Wow.
So I think having a niche is really, really important. You know, and then finally, I would say, you know, be focused on your client. Stop selling your goods. You know, I think that your best way is to really figure out what your client's problem is, what the customer's problem is, and you're there to solve it for them.
That's right.
Instead of just selling yourself. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that would be, you know, in my limited run as a CEO of this company, those are three big things that I've learned that have been helpful for the business. So
that's great advice. And I think that a lot of people out there who do want to, of course, have their own company, it's really niching down and really understanding what your customer wants. And thank you for that, Heather. And I appreciate your time today. And I know that you have a lot to handle, especially with a studio that's active right now and clients and projects. And, you know, before we go, I'd love for you to also tell us, where can we find you online and how can we support?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is www.castleview.agency. You can find us online there. We also have a Instagram page. I think it's at CastleviewATX. So yeah, follow us there, like our work, share our work. All of that's great. I truly believe that all boats rise with the tide. So I'm a big believer in supporting people in this community. So I would love that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Heather. Have a great rest of your day. And hopefully you have some more time to walk your dogs in the fresh air.
Thanks. Welcome to Austin. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Haven podcast. And if you dig it and like what you heard today, please give us a nice review and rating and share it with one of your friends that you think needs some creative inspiration. You can always find more content and resources at thecreativehaven.com and hit me up on Instagram at Mitchel Dumlao. And if you want to reach out, collab, or ask any questions, you have my permission to slide into my DMs. So keep positive, continue to learn and hone your craft, and create all day. Salamat.